This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. Now, I got bad news. You're on LinkedIn, and you're doing it wrong. Everything that you're doing on LinkedIn is wrong. How do I know? Because everything I'm doing on LinkedIn was wrong until I met Ellen Melko Moore from Super Tight Brand. Welcome to The Speaking Show.
Thank you, David. That's a great intro. I don't think we need to say anything else.
I think we're done. So tune in next time.
Yeah. Let's just leave people with a deep sense of shame that there's this thing you're doing wrong. It's hopeless and there's just not much you can do to fix it.
Well, they already know that. They've had 180 episodes of proof about that. So yes.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about, first of all, I love the name Super Tight Brand. And you and I have talked, and so I know the story, but our listeners do not know the story. So where did this fantastic Super Tight Brand concept come from, and what kind of problems were you seeing out there in the marketplace where a lot of stuff is not super tight right now?
It is not so super tight. So basically that came out of my first business in circa 2000, long ago, when mastodons roamed the digital earth. I was escaping from academia with a partner from my PhD program, and we were trying to think of a business we could do where we could read and talk about books that wasn't at university or high school. And so we created this concept called Good Books Lately, and it was for book groups, for people in book clubs. And we created resources for how to choose the books and how to talk about the books and have a better discussion. So that was my experience. When you create something really super tight, as in very niched, very targeted, you get to go to the front of the line without waiting around. So within a very short period of time, about a year, I was doing local television. And then about a year and a half, we were doing consulting for the Oprah Winfrey Book Club and Oprah and the Early Show and some other big things. And so then I thought, well, I've taught classes and I've had this one thing that worked really well. So I wonder, could I teach other people how to be that targeted and focused? Because our natural, what I know from 15 years of working with really creative, generous, awesome people is that we're totally resistant to that idea in general. We're yes, but there's this audience, and what about this, and what about that? And it isn't intellectual at all. It's very much an emotional piece, is what I'm trying to say. So generally, when we first work with people, they'll say, oh, I've got a really tight target audience. And we would say, but it could be tighter. And you would get more money faster and get to go to the front of the line if you get to stand out like that. So that's the story of Super Tight. And that's what it means.
Totally tremendous. Now, let's talk about LinkedIn, because I've heard you present. I've heard you give some of your brilliance on LinkedIn. I looked at my LinkedIn, of course, because whenever you hear someone smart talk about something, you're like, well, how good am I at doing that?
Right,
and I'm kind of looking at my stuff. I'm going, well, sort of. I'm kind of doing that, but no, not really. And so that's me kind of whining and squirming uncomfortably. One of your things that every expert, every thought leader, every consultant listening to our voices right now needs to know is that you have a very distinct and I think very smart and insightful philosophy about how they need to re-engineer their LinkedIn profile, like the about section and then the job positions, their job history, that I have never heard. And I've have a lot of LinkedIn buddies and social selling and all this kind of crazy stuff. But you have a super tight perspective on this. And let's start with the about section. A lot of people put all kinds of crazy nonsense in there that commoditizes themselves. You recommend they put something kind of interesting and cool and sticky that decommoditizes themselves instantly the very first moment that we look at their professional headline and about section. Fire away on some of that.
Correct. So, you got to remember this whole LinkedIn thing, right? Started in 2003 and everybody, okay, we've got LinkedIn now. All right, well, what is this? So we all sort of decided, oh, well, it's like a digital CV, it's a digital resume, right? So then that's what LinkedIn profiles looked like for some time. And then we go forward another 10 years or so, and people started to say, oh, listen, it doesn't just have to be kind of this formal CV. It doesn't have to be just this talking about myself in third person and my, you know, in for that very formal corporate language. I could have this like a sales page, like a mini website. And so then we sort of moved into that era. And that's where you'll see the about section that says who I am, why I'm different, who I serve. It is some version of why I am great and why my company is great, some version of that. And so the point is, and the person I really learned this from who helped me understand this was a lovely woman named Bryn Tillman, who is a social selling expert. And she pointed to this statistic from foundation.co that says 74% of people are going to buy from the first expert who gives them true insight on something, a breakthrough, a shift in perspective. Because no matter how many other people you hear say that same thing later, in your mind, oh, it's David Newman's idea, it's Ellen Malcolm Moore's idea. And so the idea is when someone arrives at your about section, instead of having it be like a resume or a sales page or an about, think of it if that section was called keynote. It's the keynote section. So if I paid you 50K to get up on stage in front of, or perhaps more, I don't, how much do like really good keynote people earn for a keynote these days, David?
Somewhere between 35 and 50 is kind of the top end of the non-superstar range.
Okay. So we'll just, because this is super tight, we're going to make everyone superstars. So what's like the superstar range, would you say?
So it could be anywhere from $250,000, $500,000. I mean, you get to the Hillary Clintons, you get to the Colin
Right.
Powells, you get to the
Yeah.
Lance Armstrongs, etc.
It's a little different. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to say like 500,000. That's how much our keynotes are worth because we're just that fantastic. So if I paid you 500,000 and this is your stage to speak to the best people around the world, English speaking world with money and mindset and excitement about what you're doing, we wouldn't get up on that stage and talk about here's who I am, here's what I offer, here's why I'm different. We just wouldn't. What we would do instead is try to give our audience a breakthrough in perception, have them see something a different way. So if you use this section to do that and share vendor agnostic insights, which just means the insights you're sharing isn't talk to me and I'll solve your problem, buy stuff from me and I'll solve your problem, but actually, kind of a full insight. Hey, do something this way and here's how to work. Everyone else on LinkedIn for quite some time is still going to be doing resume or sales letter. And when you direct people to your profile, they're going to start learning from you right away. And the right people are going to want to keep reading because they want to learn more. And now perhaps you've had a chance of being that first person who presented that switch in perspective to them. So a lot of what we do is just profile makeovers. And that's the top section we're talking there. But you can take every section of your LinkedIn profile and just make it more educational, more insightful, and good things will happen because you're going to be like the only person that person sees for probably months on LinkedIn that isn't like who I am, what I do, why I'm different, why you should buy from me. Let's get on a call. Let's get on a call. Let's get on a call. So, we all get a little tired of that sometimes.
Absolutely. Now, you said so much great action-packed stuff in there.
Sorry.
I think one of the things that people need to rewind, go back, listen to this again, but I'm going to ask Ellen to expand on it, is the very best people in your market will be in the audience for this keynote.
Yes, they will.
And you have some cool acronyms like ATP and ETP. And how do we put that persona in front of us, that person that we are really writing this for, writing this keynote for, and writing this keynote to? Talk about ATP and ETP and how that's different than trying to genericize that message.
So ATP, we have sort of a weird system that we kind of invented for qualifying the very best people. I don't think our concepts are that unusual. We just like cute acronyms. So anyway, the first acronym is ATP, and that means ability to pay. So whatever your offer is worth, the way it's designed to be done, not on sale, not discounted, not quarantine era, prices knocked down. Like how much is your offer what is it worth? And so this person's going to have ATP ability to pay. So on LinkedIn, for example, you would be thinking about professionals whose careers and whose companies have possibly been improved by the quarantine versus folks who unfortunately are struggling, really hard right now. And what we noticed in March, April, but especially by May, it was very pronounced. I'm sure you saw this too, David, that there were lots of folks who understandably were really struggling, but there were pockets of people that were just catapulted out of the stratosphere. If you had stock in Zoom, that just quadrupled. If you are, for instance, looking at an industry like software as a service, as perhaps full of people with ATP, you would be correct. So that's that first criteria, is just really thinking about it like that. And again, we're not suggesting, oh, you only want to go after rich, wealthy, successful people. What we're saying is you want to center your strategy on LinkedIn towards folks who can easily afford you. And then the second piece is ETP, and that's eager to pay. And it's just as important because, as we all know, and some of us have probably been that person who had the ability to pay, but we were I know I've been kind of like whiny and I don't want to, and you can't make me. So the point is, we're looking for that eagerness. There are those people who are literally shopping several hours a day on the internet looking to get coached, consulted, experted, serviced, and they're looking for the best people. And they're not worried about, I have to have it in bite-sized chunks. Like, you want those people who are so willing and eager to learn. So those are the first tier criteria. So if you have a profile that you're aiming at, perhaps you've got 2 or 3 different personas or avatars, however you like to think of it. Here's what's so cool about LinkedIn. Can I tell them a secret about LinkedIn that nobody knows about, apparently?
Shh. No one needs to share this, but yeah, go ahead and we'll just keep it between us.
Don't tell anybody. No, I always laugh because I'm sure other people do talk about this. I just haven't seen it or heard it. So my incredible discovery is you can test audiences on LinkedIn. So let's say you do think, I'm going to kind of revamp my profile for this person with ATP and ETP, but I'm not quite sure if it's this person or if it's this person. Well, without too much effort, you can make those slight changes up and down the board, go after, target number 1 for a few weeks, see how that goes. Are those people responding? Are they connecting? Are they chatting with you? And then, if it's not quite right, you can make an adjustment. And you can do all this without changing your website or your Pinterest or your Facebook or your newsletter. And I just mean use it as a testing ground.
Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless. So let's talk about this testing thing, because this is just fascinating. Let's say over the course of these 2 weeks, I've got a little pad here and I'm kind of ticking down. Okay, I've sent out 50 connection requests.
Yes.
And in that 2 weeks, 32 people accepted my connection. Then I want to change it, right? And I'm going to keep a little scratch pad next to my computer again. I'm going to send another 50 connection requests to that different set of people, and 45 people out of the 50 will connect. I know I'm onto something. Is that what you mean by, do we actually count?
Yeah, you can actually count. And the way you just said it, first off, if you're getting 32 and 45 out of 50, you are killing it. So go you. But yes, you could literally keep count that way. And generally what we do is we kind of go after a smaller number. We might say, all right, let's aim for 10 or 20. Because the next thing we want to find out after we've connected and they've connected with us is, will this person actually engage in conversation with us? And then obviously from there, will this person get on a private Zoom or phone call, whatever? And say you talk to 2 or 3 of these people of that 50 that you originally connected with. And what you hear are, they have some things in common. They have some situations in common. You're like, this looks good. But I also hear all 3 of these people talking about, because of the quarantine or because of the pandemic, this has happened, that has happened. So again, you don't have to go change everything in your profile. You could just change your headline a little bit for that second group. And the headline, by the way, is the thing underneath your name that in the old days people used as a title, right? You would put CEO, founder, that kind of thing. So the idea is, yes, you could literally keep count. That's the objective part. But subjectively, you would be paying attention to the conversations, the feeling, the responsiveness. When you wind up talking to that target, do you find a lot of people who are like eager and looking to spend money? Does that make sense, David?
Sure,
Answering that?
totally.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about, because you also have a very interesting way of reaching out to these 10, 20 people. A lot of times, and I know that this is nails scratching on a chalkboard, people send the generic LinkedIn connection request. Not good.
Yeah.
You have a much better formula for, let's say we've changed our profile, right? We've worked with you, we've changed our profile, we have everything now kind of dialed in. The keynote is up at the top. We'll talk about some other things in a moment. We're reaching out to some people who we are selecting as who might be of interest to us as potential prospects or potential decision makers. What does that initial connection request sound like if they do it right in your world?
Well, I think the big thing is don't talk about yourself, talk about the other person. So, a lot of folks, when they're sort of crafting this, non-generic message, they'll say, I'm doing this and this and this and this. I'm doing this for my network, me, 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 me. And again, I don't think it's because people are rampantly narcissistic. I think it's because we've been taught to kind of think of it that way. So if instead I don't say anything about me, like literally nothing, but I take a couple minutes and I read David Newman's profile, and oh my gosh, we were both English majors way back then. Oh my gosh, we both have, well, I happen to know because I've talked to you that we both have some theater background, but I could, from just your profile, find out that way back when you and I were English majors at about the same time. So I would write you and say, what you've accomplished in your marketing career is just extraordinary. And how cool is it that, we both started out as English majors and some other point of connection. And then I would just say, I'd like to connect with you. When you get a second, David, would you check out my profile and see if it makes sense to you for us to connect? So then a more ambitious person who is doing their own LinkedIn will actually go look at the profile, which means now they're going to start learning from you, right? Ha, 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 evil plan fulfilled. Now, if it's not them, but they're VA in Belize, I happen to have a very nice VA in Belize. So, but if your VA in Belize is being you on LinkedIn, they're not going to necessarily know what to do with this. So they got to wait and talk to their person. And the point is, they might just connect with you and they might not look. But the people who do look, if you've organized this in a kind of more interesting, provocative way that isn't about selling, when you then reach out to them and say, hey, David, thanks so much for connecting with me. And again, I would say something else to you about you to see if you'll start chatting with me now. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, again, here's the part that people need to rewind because Ellen is not kidding when she says no sales intent. It's not like, no, don't tell them you have sales intent, but you have sales intent. No, it should be hidden sales intent. It's like, no, it is purely relationship building, exploratory intent. We're not sure if they're a suspect or a prospect or a lead, and we're not even thinking in terms of suspect, prospect, and lead. We're thinking of how can I find people who might be in the category of person that I could help.
Yes.
And then talk about the helping conversation, because you and I had a helping conversation earlier this week. By the way, P.S., it was super helpful. Talk about that approach about nurturing and being helpful before any business relationship is even proposed.
So as you might imagine, when we sort of start to talk about this with audiences, we start to see those frown lines and the confused face and the, and then someone will raise their hand. Well, back in the day when people could raise their hand because they were in a physical room together, they would say, but, VA from Belize, I don't have time to be on LinkedIn all day. I'm sending out 50 of these things a day. I don't have time to look at profiles, all that stuff. And, our answer is, listen, if you don't, you don't. And we're certainly not arguing this is the only way to do things. However, if you are in a B2B type of business, LinkedIn is a very important platform for you. It's where 89% of your folks are, followed only by Twitter, and Facebook a dim third. So no offense, Facebook. Point being that if you perhaps eliminate a couple other activities that you're doing, you could probably find 30 minutes a day to just get to know people on LinkedIn. And again, we're not arguing that, you shouldn't do any of those things that have been part of your digital funnel for the past 10 years. Do what you're going to do. However, on LinkedIn, everyone likes to buy, but nobody likes to be sold. No one. So if you want to stand out from the crowd, everything you do on LinkedIn is about teaching or helping, being of service with the knowledge and information that you happen to have. Everyone you approach is a fellow human being, that you are lucky, you are privileged to be in a world, all of us are, where we get to create this together. And for me, I'm thinking about people as potential power partners, potential referrals, potential maybe I'll get to be on their podcast, or someday they'll get to be on mine when I get around to doing that. Point being, I have no expectation up front about what category this person belongs in, because I don't know. And again, I think for some of us, this sort of thought process is going to come as a sort of some good news. Like, as you know, I have an academic background, so I'm more comfortable doing this sort of thing than I am with sales funnels. And again, I'm not saying sales funnels are bad. I'm just saying I personally am kind of bad at them. So, point being, just interact with people, be of service. Once you get that first conversation going, so I'm chatting with this guy, David Newman, that I met on LinkedIn, and we're chatting, and I'll say, listen, David, I don't know if you're interested in using LinkedIn to develop your business and get more clients. So I've obviously just said something that I'm going to assume David is interested in doing. But if you are, when you have a moment, I have some suggestions for you about your LinkedIn profile. And if you'd like to hear them, and if you don't want to, I won't be offended. Like, no worries. And so David's like, all right, who's this weirdo reaching out to me with suggestions for my LinkedIn profile? And, he might write back and say, well, just tell me. Or he might write back and be like, yeah, okay, weird lady, I'm up for meeting you. And so then you get on that call, that Zoom, and for 30 minutes, whatever your thing is that you help people do, just do that thing for 30 minutes. And then at the end, if you get the feeling someone is interested, perhaps then you ask them if they'd like to do another call at some point, or do they want to be on your newsletter list, or actually just say email list. Don't use the N word, like ever. Just kidding. But anyway, point being, focus on that. And if they are interested in buying from you or working with you because that 30 minutes started to get them hooked, they will ask. They will usually say, oh, well, how do I, and then you can have that conversation.
So do we bring it up? Do we ask if they don't? So we're assuming that they sound interested, they sound engaged, they were very appreciative and responsive during that 30 minutes. Someone who's like, yeah, no, yeah. We're not going to ask that person.
No,
but assuming there was good rapport, there was good chemistry, what kind of language do we use to kind of ask them, would they like to explore some next step?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way you just said it was fine. Often, David, I don't ask. And I just let them ask. But if I'm not sure, like if it seems like they're pretty interested, but they haven't given me any little fish hooks of how much does your program cost? Kind of those first questions, then I might say, either, again, I'm sorry to answer this way because it's probably confusing and nebulous, but it's sort of intuitively, how do I feel like it's going? I might say, would you like to hear? Just kind of the bare bones of how this service works so you can consider it, or so you can tell your friends. Because after that 30 minutes, people often are quite appreciative if you've given what you have to give in 30 minutes. So, I'll ask it like that. So it's open for them and they don't feel put on the spot, because maybe they want to say they're not ready to talk about it yet, but they do want to tell their friends because they just got 30 minutes of free awesomeness out of you.
Yeah.
So that's a way I often do it. Or I figure out a way that we're going to have that next conversation. Again, if I think this person is a good fit and I'm a good fit for them.
Yeah.
It is just more, we always joke 2015 called and they want their digital sales funnel back. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I do see an overall trend that has been helped along by the pandemic and the quarantine, where even a year ago, a lot of the top people were saying, don't say the word funnel. Don't say the word like, and I just mean everyone wanted to kind of take it down a notch from, shall we call it the 2009 to 2016 era of digital sales, like all that stuff. And I guess we're moving in a softer direction where people want to be in service mode first and let others tell you. And they will. You don't have to manipulate people. And it's nice for people who are just sort of service oriented anyway, I think.
Yes, for sure. Well, and most of the clients that you work with, most of the clients that I work with, they hate the S word. The
They
S
do.
word is sales and selling. Like, oh, I love the work of my work. I love my clients. I just don't like the sales part. I don't like the outreach. I hate prospecting. Prospecting makes me queasy and blah, 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 blah. And, my 4 words that I tell people, very much in alignment with what you're doing and teaching with your clients, is I say, you don't like sales? Replace it with 4 new words. Offer value, invite engagement. That's it. You don't need to sell anything. You don't need to pitch anything. You don't need to promote anything. Offer value, invite engagement. Now, let's talk about this offer value piece, because you said something in our earlier conversation that really blew my mind about what to post on LinkedIn, how often to post, regular kind of status update / posts versus articles, and how some of those rules have changed. And people that are like really beating on LinkedIn are kind of working against the algorithm, correct?
Yeah. So the LinkedIn algorithm, if you go back to some of my posts from a year ago, I've written like several love and hate letters to the LinkedIn algorithm, as in, dear LinkedIn algorithm, what the hell? So just know it's a capricious beast. LinkedIn is such a weird animal. It really doesn't act like or snack like Google or Facebook or, kind of most of the other platforms we're familiar with. So first off, LinkedIn, the algorithm does not like it if you're posting multiple times a day. And in fact, it doesn't even like it that much if you're posting once a day. It prefers that you post, let's just say, to give a concrete answer, 2 to 3 times a week, but that you have high engagement on those posts. So speaking of invite engagement, do that thing. So people go, oh, I've got 20,000 connections on LinkedIn and I've got this post that got 10,000 views and it all sounds so good. But the LinkedIn algorithm isn't impressed. It would rather your post have, 2,000 views, but then have 20 comments on it showing, and the comments of more than 2 words, not comments like I agree, good post, sort of moving on past that. Because the algorithm knows if it's 2 words, that's not real engagement. Like it doesn't, So it's just a weird, weird thing. And like there's a guy on LinkedIn named Andy Foote, who's kind of the god of he's my god of the LinkedIn algorithm. So I kind of check in with his stuff about once a month because they're always changing something. And the big news this week, everyone in LinkedIn world is freaking out about, is that the about section used to be 2,000 characters, but now it's going to be 2,600 characters. So I don't want to drift back into the about section, but the point is those things we've been trained to do on other platforms just don't mean that. Like the LinkedIn algorithm, 0 Fs were given about those things, just doesn't care. So it wants to see engagement. And I think the other question you asked was about articles versus posts.
Correct.
Okay. So for a minute, the LinkedIn algorithm, which is like the worst boyfriend you've ever had, decided that it was super into articles because it really wanted you to just write articles, articles, articles. And so you see people who've written like 99, like for a year or 2 of their life, they wrote an article every day. And the LinkedIn algorithm, the crappiest boyfriend you ever had, is like, yeah, but what have you done for me lately? I mean, and also I decided I don't really care about articles that much. So basically, what we would say is it's great to have a couple articles up on your profile that go more in depth. Like if you're a super long winded person like me and you want people to get like every single freaking detail, then an article would be a good place to display that. And then concentrate in general, though, more on finding ways to get engagement around your post and make sure that your posts are just, again, teaching people stuff, helping people do stuff. Don't talk about your offers, don't talk about your office parties, like just kind of move into, hey, you're an expert. So give us free stuff, basically. That's what we want from you.
And are we talking text? Are we talking images? Are we talking video on these posts?
Okay, so video is a really great thing to do on LinkedIn if you like to do it. I would say 60 to 75 seconds tops. Every time I say this, David, it makes me laugh for 3 years ago when we were like, no more than 3 minutes. And, that we were making our videos. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. And so it's just funny. It's like every year, like a minute gets cut off our attention span. So now we're down to 60 to 75 seconds. And then also do make sure that you get those videos transcribed with a service like Temi or Rev, because again, the algorithm likes it. And also because most people watch LinkedIn with the sound off, like you have to turn it on.
So we shoot the video, and then how do we upload the video so we get the subtitles?
You have to get it transcribed.
Yeah.
So you send it to a service like Rev or Temi, and they will put transcriptions on for you. And I think with Temi, it's like 25 cents per minute.
Oh, so they will attach the transcript file to the video and then send you the source video back with the subtitles.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's neat.
I think so. I should probably double check that because I'm not the one who does that.
Somebody will. If it's not Temi, it's somebody else. And more power to them.
Yeah. And it's cheap is my point. So with your minute and 15 second, you just spent 40 cents to get that transcription. So you'll live to see that day. There are people who are making whole careers out of just videos on LinkedIn because not very many people do them. So I think that's really good. And again, make sure that your videos, don't talk about your journey. Just make sure that your videos are either super entertaining or extremely useful or both. And then I tend to do posts with just text without image. Again, because I'm not a very visual person. In case you can't tell, I'm like a super wordy word person. But again, I like to tell stories. I do jokes like my, love letters to the LinkedIn algorithm and all the stuff we've been through. Beat me out there, guys. And I mean, I don't know that it's bad to attach images. I think it's fine. But again, you really want to focus on the value of the post. Focus on that first. If you're a super visual person and you're just great at all that, go for that. Maybe you're somebody who, you want to get really cool animation for one of your ideas. There's tons of services now that do really cool animation that's very affordable. So we have a lot of options, but I would say just to sort of get out of the barn and just start practicing with what's the value you can provide, and you'll be okay. You'll get out there.
What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. Let's go behind the scenes of the Ellen Melko Moore empire. Am I correct that you started out initially just kind of coaching and advising people, and then we moved into sort of this buffet of services with you and your partner and your team? How did that evolve from Ellen just kind of doing this on an ad hoc basis as a coach versus kind of what the full-blown service is today?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm going to go to bed tonight and be like, I have an empire. So that's awesome. I remember telling, this is such a 50s story. I remember telling my mom in the late 90s that I wanted an empire like Martha Stewart or Oprah. And she said, you need to get a mortgage and a baby. So, we all have our different times in life, but now I have an empire. So too bad, Mom. But I also have a mortgage, but I don't have a baby. Anyway, point being, I was coaching by myself like many, many people who are lucky enough to live in a very responsive town, Denver, tons of, mission-minded, intentional entrepreneurs here, tons. So all I had to do was kind of, waltz around town, fall into a few networking meetings of, that other people had organized. And, I would meet people and instantly start boring them by fixing their, brand and marketing problems. And then they would be like, wow, can you do that for money? Because I'm just doing it like over drinks. And yes, I can do that for money. So lucky enough to have all that built. And as you know, over time, people get to know you. And so, about 2016, I was, I had a website, but that was about it. So people would always be like, oh, you're a brand expert, but you didn't have a website for years. And I was like one of those snotty people like, yeah, that's how good I am, whatever. Actually, I was just too lazy to do it. That's the truth. Then about 2016, 17, I have a good friend named Mark Fewsmith who has a background in online marketing, digital sales, and he used to be a day trader in New York. So he's got like that vicious shark, he will mess you up in a great way, but he will definitely find a way to make the money roll. And so for about a year and a half, he dragged me kicking and screaming through the digital coals of, it's so nice, Ellen, that you go places and people like you, but you've got to build digitally. You have to build a digital footprint. And I was like, but I don't want to, and you can't make me. And he was like, oh yeah, I can. So he made me. And I tried out different things and we wound up, ghostwriting books. We did lead magnets, email stuff, all that. I tried Facebook for a while. I'm really not very good at Facebook. Like I bless and adore people who are good at that. But what I found was it was hard to find serious contenders. And in the digital world, all I was looking for the whole time was, where are my people? And like my nerdy, super, super intense, often very intelligent, complex people who've studied for 10 or 20 years to bring this thing into, like, where are those people? So I think three different people, if three different people tell you to do the same thing, I think you should always listen. And three different people in the space of about a week were like, you just really need to get on LinkedIn. And I'm like, well, I am on LinkedIn. And they were like, no, you're not. You're not really on. Like, you have a profile. Oh, okay. So I got over there and for a couple of years, got to know that all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is like secret squirrel awesomeness. Because after a while, I could see people's profiles and I could tell within 30, 60 seconds if this person was a contender for what I think of as our ecology. And that word, like, I'm obsessed with. Like, people talk about community. I love community, but I like ecology even more because it is it suggests that there are some boundaries to this. So the end of the story is we were really doing very, very well on LinkedIn. And as part of Super Tight Brand, we started teaching LinkedIn. And then again, it just became a bigger and bigger and bigger part of our business. And actually, we are now changing our name to Super Tight LinkedIn from Super Tight Brand. So
no, you're not.
Yes, we are, for real. Yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
When's that happening?
Well, we actually are building the website right now and I have a new email. So when is this going to air?
Who knows? It might never air because I just want to keep this info for myself.
I got it. Okay.
I don't want to let these other people hear about it.
Yeah, don't tell them.
Yeah, just absolutely. You and me. It's you and me, and we'll just play this over and over again. It'll be great. So that's exciting. So you are drinking your own Kool-Aid, right?
Frickin' drinking that thing all the way.
Now, one thing that we have to talk about just because of Super Tight LinkedIn, and this is in your dark, cobwebby corners of your past, yes. Super Tight Couch.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about Super Tight Couch for a quick second.
Super Tight Couch we had a lot of clients who were therapists as part of Super Tight Brand. So I wanted to create an offshoot for them called Shrink Wrap, which was branding for shrinks and specialization for therapists, because they don't actually teach that in grad school. They just go, here, you have a degree now, go do stuff. So I wanted Shrink Wrap really bad, but some woman already had it for her whatever stupid thing. I'm just kidding. I'm sure it wasn't stupid. So I couldn't use Shrink Wrap. So I was like, we tried and came up with all these other things. So we're like, okay, it's an offshoot of Super Tight Brand. So it's going to be called Super Tight Couch. And we had all these couch jokes for therapists. And we still really like therapists, by the way. So if you're a therapist, come on over. We'll talk.
Yes.
That's the story of how that
You will
went.
have a seat on the super tight couch and you will make a whole lot more money.
Yes, that is definitely our passion. What drives us is that we're both super nerds, me and Mark, like two of the nerdiest people you're ever going to want to meet. And I just like helping like really smart, weird people make money because I wish someone had done that like a lot more for me when I was younger.
I got to tell you, I'm a smart, weird person. I like what you're talking about.
David, thank you so
I know.
much.
Well, Ellen Melko, and Melko, by the way, it's just fun to say. Can we just be honest about this? Ellen Melko Moore, it's way more fun to put that Melko in there than Ellen Moore. Ellen Moore is boring. Melko. Just say Melko 3 times, everybody. Awesome. Tell us, where can people get more Ellen Melko Moore brilliance? How do they connect with you? What links can we send them? Where should we put them on the interwebs to connect and get more genius?
I do also have a former business called More Ellen Moore, because I thought everyone wants more. So that's good. Addicts out there, you're with me. You know what I'm talking about. So I love that you just shouted Melko a bunch of times, because if you do type in Ellen Melko, Melko, More to LinkedIn, you will absolutely find me in the full levels of my snarkiness, and you can send me a connection request. And when you do, just say, Ellen, I heard you on David Newman show. Let's connect. You check out my profile. See if it makes sense to you, Ellen, to connect with me. I'm just kidding. You can say whatever you want. And I will connect with you if you write me a good note. And I probably won't connect with you if you don't write me a good note, because there's a lot of people. There's 630 million people on LinkedIn. So we all have trouble just keeping up. That's one thing you can do. You can also find me at supertightlinkedin.com, or we have a freebie. It's called the Connection Interrupt. And we always joke with, the one weird tip to lose belly fat. This is one weird tip to sort out like the real contenders on LinkedIn from the folks who just want to sell you their multi-level marketing stuff. God bless them. God bless them and set them free in a field far, far away from me. So we'll put the link in for that. And it basically shows a technique of how you can sort of start to sort people. And we'll have a link for that David's going to tell me where to put the link. And
yes, it's all of these goodies that we're talking about are directly under this episode when you go to thespeakingshow.com and directly under Ellen Melko Moore's episode is where you're going to find all these links. You're going to find Ellen on LinkedIn. You're going to find Super Tight LinkedIn. And you're going to find the one weird trick to lose belly fat quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
Except on LinkedIn.
Because no one wants belly fat on LinkedIn. Yeah, absolutely.
So non-prospects, although I think we can maybe extend this and have a little bit more bizarre fun with it, non-prospects and people without ATP and ETP, aren't they the belly fat of LinkedIn?
Honestly, I don't mean to be mean to anybody, but kind of.
Yeah, they sort of are.
They really are. And we wish them luck on their path in a field.
But also,
far, far away.
Just so that we're not seen as mean-spirited, because God forbid, one woman's belly fat might be someone else's filet mignon.
Absolutely.
So it depends on your business. It depends on what you do and who you are and who you serve. So they're not belly fat, period. There's belly fat to you.
Here's the belly fat of LinkedIn is people who are making absolutely no attempts to disguise that the only reason they're talking to you is they want your money.
Right.
And I really don't like that feeling that, people for some odd reason didn't wake up this morning and go, you know what I want to do? I want to give Ellen money. Like, I'd really just love to give Ellen money. That's why I'm going to get on LinkedIn. So don't be treating LinkedIn that way, because it is a network. It's called a network for a reason. And you don't want to treat your network that way. It will not get you far in life. So that's the belly fat of LinkedIn.
There you go. Totally fantastic. Well, Ellen Melko Moore, thank you for being with us. Thank you for dropping all these value bombs. I really appreciate you. And what a fabulous interview.
Thank you so much, David. I hope my tongue didn't runneth away with me, but it usually does. So thank you for being so gracious about that and for having me on, this incredible show. And I know the eyes of the world are on you as you lead us through, the next marketing genius that you're going to release. So go you, and thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.